Case, it's 7:30. I believe we have the 9 members of the Board of Education. I just wanted to welcome everyone for joining tonight, the June 23rd Board of Education meeting for West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District. We have a presentation that's up first on the agenda, which is a required presentation by the state of New Jersey on annual HIB reporting. Joining us this evening on the panel is Dr. Lee McDonald, and if I remember correctly, this is up first as the first item for a board presentation, and then an opportunity for the board to ask a Q&A to Dr. McDonald and the administration, and then a board vote. After, an opportunity for public comments to the members of the public. There is a link on the website specific to this presentation, as we're required to have specific comment period directly to. So as Dr. McDonald is presenting, if you have a question regarding or a comment regarding the presentation, there is an opportunity to do so and to be read into the public record. Lee, I'll turn it over to you. Obviously, a little bit of a different experience this year in a virtual environment. The last couple months, as this is the last 6 months worth of data. I'll share screen and bring your presentation up and turn it over to you.
I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second, Dr. Adderhold. I just want to point out that we held a closed session prior to convening in this Zoom meeting, and so our meeting has been called to order. And I'm just going to turn it over to our board attorney, Mark Toscano, who is going to just give us a little update on some additional items that we discussed in closed session that were not previously noted on our agenda.
Thank you,
Yes,
Ms. Page.
I'm sorry, Dave. Madam President, there's only one additional item in box number 8. The board did discuss personnel items as noted on the agenda and as to be noted on the addendums. That was all.
Thank you. And with that, we will now turn it over to Dr. Lee McDonald.
All right, thank you, Ms. Cage. Thank you, Dr. Adderhold. As previously mentioned, this report covers the spring 2020 semester. It's a semi-annual harassment and intimidation bullying report required by the state of New Jersey. Just a reminder to the public and certainly the Board of Education that we transitioned to Hipster software this past spring. I really appreciate, and certainly my administrative colleagues, our anti-bullying specialists, appreciate the board's support with moving to the Hipster. It's really helped us manage the investigation process, track data more efficiently. So if your board reports look different and some of the data looks a little bit different, that's because there's different modules that we're using in reporting our data. Also want to remind everyone that we have revised HIB categories. Founded versus unfounded. Essentially, an incident is either HIB and it meets the definition by the state, or it does not. That's really streamlined our data collection process. It has certainly simplified our stakeholder communication, be it on an individual case basis or certainly with the Board of Education. And it's also better aligned to the state's database management system, which is required by code each year. Looking at the definition of harassment, intimidation, bullying, a quick refresher, there's essentially 4 prongs. If you look here at the definition, certainly the something, right? Something has to happen. It could be a gesture, written, verbal, could be electronic communication. Something occurs, it's reasonably perceived as being motivated by an actual or perceived characteristic. It takes place on school property, could be something off grounds, could be at a school bus. Certainly there has to be a nexus that ultimately connects to the school and interferes with the orderly operation, of the school or the individual rights of students. So transitioning, we're going to take a look at our spring 2020 data. This is just a quick snapshot from last year compared to this year. You can see right away, as Dr. Adderhold noted earlier, there was a drop off due to COVID, no doubt due to COVID-19 closure in mid-March. Naturally, when there's less interaction among students and less people, really no one in the buildings, there's less opportunities for these types of incidents to occur. Other than that, we've held steady when you look at last year compared to this year when you look at the fall semesters. Overall, we had 43 investigations this spring reporting period. Again, just want to highlight January, February were fairly consistent from where we've been over the last few years. And then you start to see that drop off in March with the COVID-19 closure, and even further more in April, May, and then ultimately June. 43 investigations, 27 founded, 16 unfounded. That split is fairly consistent with what we've seen. Roughly 10 to 2/3 of the investigations that we do ultimately end in founded. That's been very consistent over the last few years, even longer. Especially as we continue to train staff and be better aware. That being said, we also always abide by the rule that, you know, when in doubt, you go through the investigation process to make sure that you're covering all your bases. Grade level investigations, a little bit of an anomaly this past spring in terms of the high school data that you see here. Typically, we see more of kind of a roller coaster bell curve, if you will, with our data, and that middle school tends to have the most investigations and the most founded. Obviously, the majority of the investigations occurred at the high school level. Of course, our teams and I will have to take a closer look at why that was and drill down to what the data tells us about individual cases and school patterns. HIB investigations by location. This gives you an idea of kind of where these incidents occur. Yes, you have the classroom there at 15, but if you add up all the other categories, those are really your unstructured activities, your less supervised places, be it the hallway, be it the online, cell phone, social media, lunch, locker room, bus, playground, and whatnot. I also want to note that an incident can fall within multiple categories here. An incident could start in the lunchroom and spill over into the locker room, or vice versa, for example. In terms of the distinguishing characteristics, again, this is consistent with the data that we've seen, in that most of the distinguishing characteristics are something other than what you typically see defined. The first category is sex based on gender, followed by race, disability. That fourth category there is actually sexual orientation and religion. Those tend to be your more common defined characteristics. The other ones fall into anything and everything. It could be a child has red hair, for example. It could be just about anything. So that's been very consistent when we look at our data over the last few years. Patterns and trends previously mentioned, investigations down and certainly confirmed HIB down overall, no doubt, due to the less interaction connections among students. High school investigations, I do believe is a little bit of an anomaly based upon the data that we've seen over the last few years. Unstructured activities, minimally supervised settings, and certainly the other category, distinguishing characteristics. So these patterns are pretty consistent with what we've seen, other than the first two here noted. Going to transition to our anti-bullying rubric. This is a rubric that was put out by the Department of Education several years back, and ultimately it's really a tool for our school safety teams, our climate teams, if you will, to reflect and learn and grow and really self-assess where they are in meeting the requirements of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. There's 8 core elements. It was developed by a group of professionals. This particular data applies for this current school year, 2019-2020. Each indicator, maximum 3, minimum 0, 1, and 2 in terms of partially or meeting the requirements. I'm pleased to say that in most categories we exceed the requirements. I think we take great pride in what we do with our school climate teams to make sure that we're not only meeting the standards but exceeding them. Ultimately, the maximum grade for any individual school is 78 points. Average scores by element, again from the spring, you look at core element 1, our HIT programs, our approaches, other initiatives. This is our proactive programming that we do. Average school grade was 14.1 out of 15. Core element number 2, we are required to hold a number of trainings every year, and this is 8.6 out of 9. In a district of our size, I will tell you it's an immense challenge trying to train all the various staff members, instructional staff, non-instructional staff, contracted staff, but I think we do an amazing job and have a lot of things in place, but we want to continue to strive to make sure that we get everybody appropriately trained. Core element number 3, other staff instruction training. So for example, we bring in Mr. Toscano every year. He's been a great support for our anti-bullying specialists and our administrators. We do an in-house training with him just to revisit best practices, to talk through scenarios. Those are those other types of trainings. We have other workshops that our staff members are able to leverage using their professional development funds. So we continue to provide not only in-house training, but outside training as well. Curriculum instruction, we think about our character education programs and whatnot. Those are, that falls under that core element number 4, that proactive programming, the groups that we do with students to get them to understand not just the law, but what our expectations are ultimately for behavior. Core element number 5, HIP personnel. Every school, of course, is required to have an anti-bullying specialist. A district is required to have an anti-bullying coordinator, myself, and just making sure that you're doing that, but that you're also making sure that you've got processes in place to review staff professional development, staff compliance with those roles, the responsibilities that come with them. Core element number 6, school level HIP incident reporting procedure, 5.8 out of 6. That really speaks to, how good are our systems at reporting what is happening in our buildings. If something happens, we want to know. I think we're doing quite well in that department, but there's always an opportunity to improve. You want to make sure that students feel comfortable, number 1, in coming forward. If they see something, they say something. We call them upstanders. We want students to be feel like they can be trusted, and they can be feel secure in coming forward and safe and when they do see something. Your investigation procedure, those are all of those things that fall within a 10-day timeline. There's a very prescriptive investigation process. That's core element number 7, 12 out of 12. And finally, core element number 8, this report here, as I mentioned before, is required by the state of New Jersey. There are other requirements that we have in place as part of the SSDS, so that speaks to our ability to continue to make sure that we're reporting in a timely fashion, and that we're making sure that we are reporting to the superintendent, to the Board of Education, all those little various reporting requirements. Just a comparison to last year in terms of where we were, I will tell you that, every year I think we get a little bit better. So we're certainly running out of room for improvement when it comes to the rubric. I know that 2017 we were at 73, or 2018 rather, 73. 2019 we're at 74. You can see the average scores by grade level there. We've made a lot of improvements, I think, in addressing some of the challenges that we face, particularly at the high school level, and looking at and saying, how can we exceed in those areas? If you look at the next slide, 2020, our overall scores are up to 74.9, really 75. So we're continuing to look at this rubric as a tool to self-assess and be honest with ourselves about where we are in meeting the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights and exceeding them. In terms of recommendations, looking at this report holistically, I think it's really critical that we continue the work of our school climate teams. They are all following action plans, really action research. They use data to drive decisions around programming and initiatives. They've done a tremendous job, and in the last few years, we've brought them together twice a year to make sure that they're collaborating across the district. They're sharing ideas. They're talking through challenges that they face to support one another. Looking at our anti-bullying program, everything that we do, whether it's counselor groups, character education, outside presenters, how do they align to our goals? How do they align to some of the challenges that we're facing? So that's a year-to-year process. Social and emotional supports, whether that's our school counselors, our child study teams, our UBHC clinicians, how do we continue to support students in those areas to make sure that they feel safe and secure, and that they understand what it means to be, a global citizen, if you will, what it means to have responsible decision-making, self-management, self-awareness. I skipped one there, equity planning and implementation, really critical to the work that we do in terms of building a more inclusive environment for our students. Our final, just a couple things here to highlight, the equity work and the, sorry, Dave, going back to the previous slide, in our school climate and culture, we've aligned that work to the strategic planning process as well. So all of these things that I've mentioned are critically important. As I wrap up this report, really critical to understand that, we established 10 years ago a mission statement when it came to HIB, and that we're going to continue to, not only do what we have to do to make sure that we're educating our stakeholders, but we're going to set high expectations for behaviors. We're going to report things in a timely manner. We're going to have honest conversations about where we are, and we're going to continue to build a more inclusive and responsive environment, and make sure that our students know what the expectations are for behavior, and ultimately do everything possible to eradicate HIB from our schools and our school community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald. Does the board have any questions for Dr. McDonald at this time? All right, seeing as there's none, the board invites thoughts and reactions on the district semi-annual report of harassment, intimidation, and bullying from members of our community who have submitted written comments on the form that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this opportunity for public comment on the district semi-annual report of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. All submissions containing all required fields completed will be viewed during the meeting and included as public comment in the official minutes. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and will be read by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with board policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond those 3 minutes, the full comment will be submitted and available as part of the meeting's public record.
Madam President, we're refreshing the screen. There does not appear to be any.
Okay, thank you. So with that, could I please get a motion to approve the report the January 1st to June 30th district semi-annual report of harassment, intimidation, and bullying? Robin and Rachel, items 1 and 2. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Oh,
I think it is yes.
yeah, you're still on mute, Robin.
Yep. Ms. Juliana
Yes.
and Ms. Case.
Yes.
Okay.
That will adjourn the special public hearing on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Dr. Adderholt, do you have any comments at this time?
Very brief, Ms. Case, just to, again, thank our members of our community, our staff and teachers administration for all the work that they've done to conclude the school year. Special thanks to our High School North and High School South administration, guidance staff, and all the volunteer faculty members who work so hard to make the graduations so memorable for our students under such difficult circumstances. Setting up the stages, being present and available for all the different distributions, and donating and providing a lot of time to make sure that our seniors left us being properly recognized as best we could under the circumstances. I also want to say thank you to Ty Jenkins for all the work that he, Kia Bergman, and others did in making sure the middle school salutes, as well as all the award ceremonies, were put together in such a way that honored our 8th graders as they transitioned from 8th grade in middle school to high school. And to our families, as we, the partnership and support that you've provided over these last several months has been tremendous, and we greatly appreciate the partnership with the school district. As we step forward into the summer, we, as of 7:51 on June 23rd, are still awaiting guidance from the Department of Education, the Department of Health, and the governor regarding next school year. We are hoping that we will hear something next week, and I'm sure it will raise a lot of questions once the guidance comes out. We already have planning teams working within the district now to try to look through scenarios and think through different modules depending on what we are legally allowed to do by the Department of Education. And we are trying to work with the department to try to find outside the box ideas about ways in which we can potentially provide additional supports to families. The survey that went out yesterday is just one way to gather some data to try to get a sense and understanding of what families are thinking of for the fall. It will not be the only survey that goes out. We'll be seeking some additional feedback from families about the experiences and how we could particularly bolster experiences in the fall should we remain in a virtual environment or a hybrid environment. But the survey that went out Monday was important to try to establish some baseline understanding of where parents are right now today, thinking about the fall, about reentry, as that we're hoping to use that data to help drive conversations with the Department of Education to help ground some of our recommendations and concerns in factual responses from families. So my thanks and appreciation to our parents that have already completed that. And we'd ask to please encourage friends and family members to do the same. So only help us in conversations with the department. More to come, and we'll continue to put information out to families as we learn new information, and we'll obviously give a presentation response by the July meeting. In the interim, we are waiting final notification from the Department of Ed and the legislature regarding the state of budget. While we've been tentatively notified of a first reduction, what we don't know is if the legislature is going to approve the governor's recommendation. So right now it does sit with the governor and the legislature to approve the recommended reductions. And that's round one of reductions. We also know that based on the July 15th budget, July 15th tax deadline, and then a subsequent budget presentation that the governor will make later in August, that potential additional reductions could follow. So we're monitoring for impacts to programs and looking to take some steps in the interim to try to mitigate potential loss of additional programs. And when we know the level of cuts, we will report out more publicly with respect to the actions that the Board of Education takes. At this time, it's unknown and premature until we have further authorizations from the state. Thank you, Ms. Case.
Thank you, Dr. Adderhold. That brings us to the first opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of the community who have submitted written comments on the form that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this first opportunity for public comment. All submissions containing all required fields completed will be viewed during the meeting and included as public comment in the official minutes. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and will be read by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond those minutes, the full comment will be submitted and available as part of the meeting's public record. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes. So I will now turn it over to our board attorney, Mark Toscano, to read our comments.
Madam President, on the screen we have the first comment. It's from Joey Horton, 827 Monty Court, Ewing. Comment is, first, I would like to thank the administration for their continued partnership with AAPSG as our organization continues to advocate for the African American students in the district. We want to thank both Dr. Adderhold and James Earl for taking the time to continue to host bi-monthly dialogue discussions with the organization on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've been an officer of AAPSG since 2011, working with Barbara Emmons, Karen Delk, and Tiffany Cummings, and have enjoyed my role as the president over the last 3 years. As of July 1st, Latoya Edwards will take on the role of president and will be at the helm of the organization. Latoya is well known and respected in the community, and we are confident that under her strong leadership, the organization will continue to do what is best, and that is advocate for our students. I apologize, the window just got a little small. I want to thank San Rose Russell for her dedication to the organization over the years, and also to our father, our dad of the group, Greg White. Greg has put in so much hard work and time over the years, he doesn't get enough credit, so I wanted to make sure and recognize his efforts publicly. I look forward to working with AAPSG in an advisory role and to continue to advocate with the organization for our children. Lastly, our virtual summer math program registration will go out to parents later this week, so please be on the lookout for that. Oh,
Sorry, Mark.
It's okay. Thank you again for your partnership with our summer math program. Okay. Next comment is from Bidwy, mailing address 213 Carnegie Center, Princeton. The comment is a number of, starts off with what appears to be a website address, and then it says, awaiting WWP savings corresponding to COVID-19 shutdown savings, and those savings need to be passed on to the community to lower property taxes. Then there is another website address. Given a constructive inference of the second wave between the New Jersey region and the rest of the USA, the first wave came separately in time. The second wave, MAVE 2 times 3 times amplitude and more disruptive, unlike wave 1. Thus, online education may continue through 2020 autumn and winter. Therefore, any and all employee contracts must be rewritten to reflect the lower investment of time and energy, and those savings need to be passed on to the community to lower property taxes.
That is the last comment.
That was all. And that's all, Madam President. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. So I want to just thank Mr. Toscano for reading those comments and the members of the public who submitted those comments. We are now at, it's now time for our committee reports. We'll start with administration and facilities, and for that report, I'll turn it over to Tony Flores.
Thank you. The Administration and Facilities Committee met on June 16th. We discussed the virtual school district operations. We received an update on the status of year-end activities, graduation, middle school salutes, pickup and drop-off activities for books and technology. As the superintendent said, a survey will be going out to solicit feedback on the 2021 school year. The teachers were wrapping up end-of-year instructional assignments and activities. Volunteers continue to assist with meal distribution every 2 weeks, and the technology department continues to support students with device repairs and Wi-Fi access. Again, as the superintendent mentioned, the staff will meet in 4 committee structures: governance and oversight, health and wellness, instructional program, operations and facilities, to begin planning for the upcoming school year. And I'll add that with all the uncertainty coming out of the state, they've got their work cut out for them. Then we discussed the graduation week activities and that took place for the senior photos, diploma presentations and all. I'm impressed how well it went. Congratulations to all the students and to the staff that worked behind the scenes to make it come off so successfully. Dr. Adderhold updated the committee on the 2020-2021 operating budget. Excuse me. Currently, the district is facing state aid reduction of about $800,000. And the district administrators have started planning on how to address the shortfall. Dr. Adderhold then informed the committee that the superintendent merit goals would be included for approval in tonight's agenda. We discussed a diversity equity position. The details of the new position are to support the equity efforts in the district. The title of the position is Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Coordinator, and it'll be funded through a Title I grant and primarily responsible for providing guidance and strategic systematic planning, training, and professional development. The job description is on tonight's agenda for approval. Title I funds continue to support eligible students with academic support, healthy snacks, and supplemental reading materials, and socially and emotionally supportive weekly contact with teachers and counselors. And the district is partnering with the Education Association and NJ Fast to facilitate Pizza Night, which will provide K-5 Title I eligible students with 10 to 15 books for summer reading and a pizza kit. And that night's scheduled for mid-July. And we heard an update on athletics with registration had opened on May 18th for the upcoming school year, and it closes on July 9th. And while registrations have been positive, athletics in the district will not resume until further guidance comes from the NJSIAA and the New Jersey Department of Education. And the district and special education review consultant have agreed to continue with the review process by offering stakeholders the opportunity to provide input virtually. PCG recently sent out a parent survey to gather feedback, and parents were informed that the deadline was extended to complete the survey. We then discussed the referendum projects. Construction work for the HVAC with exterior chiller work is complete, and that includes the chiller pads, electrical conduit, and underground piping runs. Demolition for toilet room renovations is underway at Wyckoff and Dutch Neck, as well as security vestibule renovations at various schools. Phase 1 bidding for additions and renovations at High School South were open, and the low bidder is Precision Construction. The Phase 1 construction is scheduled to begin this week. The addition and renovations at Grover Middle School are also moving forward. Slabs have been poured, structural steel has been erected, and the building is being closed in. The community middle school project bids were accepted and negotiations continued. Concerning the equity update, the district continues its work with the African American Parent Support Group and the WWP People of Color to create a plan of action to address issues surrounding racism and equity in WWP. This work will be included with the current equity belief work that the district is implementing. And finally, we had an update on security. And we'll just say that the eyes on the doors offices will monitor buildings and facilities during the summer. The offices will facilitate entry screening process for contractors, staff, guests, and all throughout the summer. And they'll also monitor mail and package delivery and pickup. That was it. Our next meeting is July 21st. Any questions?
I have a question. It's not really, can you hear me? Sorry. It's not really for Tony, because Dave will probably, Dr. Adderhold probably knows more about what is the current, what you know at this moment for the update on where athletics are for the fall, under whatever the NJSIA is saying right now. If you could just
Yeah,
give us that
as of right now, the NJSIA has released some guidance as of Friday late afternoon, evening regarding phased reentries. We're in what's considered phase 1, which is essentially the opportunity in small groups to do essentially small group aerobics. No shared equipment, no shared balls, physical distance spacing 6 feet minimum. Masks must be worn. No shared, as I said, no shared equipment. That also includes water bottles. No water really can be provided. Temp checks are required. You need to have on-site medical staff. We're still working through the logistics of the guidance. And quite frankly, I don't anticipate that we're going to bring back anyone under the current guidelines and guidance as is. Students are going to be encouraged to continue their because there's no, like, you can't have a passing drill. It'd really be about a small group gathering to run in place and run in distances. Students can work on preseason preseason workouts absent or outside of that. We have been very mindful about appointment of coaches at this time. We have noticed and notified the coaches that at this time we have not brought forward their appointment on the agendas. Under A3904, which is the passed bill that went through last year by the legislature, the New Jersey Ledge, and signed by the governor, we had to pay out all employees as if they completed the service. And our coaches did remarkable work in virtual spaces to try to support student athletes. But we are heading into a new year, and we do not know our fiscal position. We do not know if sports are going to run. And if we're being very honest, it's not looking too good when major sports and college universities have put a tremendous amount of money on the line for training, medical support. and coaches are struggling with how they're going to reopen. And we're putting a lot on the idea that public schools and recreation leagues are going to be able to figure this out with no additional services, no additional monies. And we're making huge assumptions that we have protocols in place. Well, there's been no medical guidance outside of the CDC. And so there is nothing on contact tracing. There is nothing on testing. Doctors would tell you that fever checks are insufficient, that they're one of many mechanisms of trying to figure this out. So the long story short is, I don't have a good answer for what the athletics is going to look like. I will tell you that there's a resolution being moved through the Senate and the Assembly that allows for the waiver of physicals and the cardiac screening of physicals on an annual basis. I do not recommend that we honor that. There's also the recommendation by the NJSIA that we can eliminate the updated documentation on the health history questionnaire and just allow a 4-question COVID questionnaire to replace it. I do not recommend that we allow that either. We should honor the questionnaire for COVID, but we should uphold the health history questionnaire. These are documents and procedures that have been put in place to ensure the medical safety of our children and to make sure that our student athletes are safe and that they're and that any underlying needs are being identified, medical needs. And when you start saying that we don't need to do cardiac screenings, I think it's a bridge too far. So I've already notified our athletic department, and Mr. Earl and I have been in discussion that we're going to uphold the requirement that those are met. If we have sports to step on the fields in WWP, you're going to be required to go through the full process. And it's not lost on me that not too long ago, we lost a student athlete that had just graduated from WWP to a cardiac concern, right? And so these screenings were put in place for reasons, and we're being very mindful to make sure that we're honoring safety and health at all costs. So we're going to ground our decisions in what we can do medically to keep people medically safe, not what people may want to do. And I think we have to really take a step back as a community and start asking why force reopening in places where we have no guidance from medical personnel and from the state. So I would just really caution that, we're going to keep taking a very cautious approach. I will say, in talking to the superintendents from around Mercer County, the vast majority of districts are doing the same exact thing for the time being. And when we get to a point where we feel that we can safely reopen in small groups, we will absolutely move forward with that, but it will come with notice, and it's going to have to come with appointment of coaches, because athletes can't gather without the coach being board approved. And so we're a long way from putting athletes on the field right now. I know it's not the popular answer, but I'm not going to lie about what we're up against here. We're up against a real challenge as a school community, and I'm saying school community bigger than WWP. And anyone who tells you that this is going to be easy of reentry or bringing student populations back together would be misleading the public and misleading parents. I'm going to tell you, I envision a scenario that if we open in any way physically, that every mass gathering is going to be canceled. There will be no large group events, and there'll be limitations on everything. The fall will come with it, and potentially the 2021 school year, massive changes to the way we operate, if we're in person at all. I don't know how to sugarcoat that one. I just need to sort of say it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the A&F committee? All right, so we'll now get the curriculum committee report, and for that I will turn it over to Dana Krug.
Hello, good evening. The curriculum committee met on Tuesday, June 16th virtually. The first topic we discussed was new teacher induction. The district has close to 100 new teachers. These are teachers in the first 4 years of teaching in our district. Dr. Nathan shared how new teacher professional development continued in a virtual format. New teachers researched and read articles about trauma-informed instruction, SEL, and virtual teaching. They reflected and shared via digital tools synchronously, including a Padlet, Google Doc, and protocols and processes that can be utilized with students. Next, we reviewed the Alternative Evaluation Professional Development Day, which was held virtually on May 28th. About 170 teachers worked with administrative team members throughout the 1920 school year on a research project focusing on a reflective practice. This evaluation process is for tenured teachers who have scored a highly effective rating in the Danielson model. Dr. Nathan shared that there was great interest from the Google form for the alternative evaluation for the school year 2020-21, with nearly 100 more teachers expressing interest in the program. The professional development day for staff new to the alternative evaluation process will be on September 1st and will run similarly to the new teacher induction session with a combination of asynchronous and synchronous experiences. Third on our agenda was the district reentry framework, focusing on the instructional program. Dr. Nathan shared the framework for reentry planning across the district. The instructional program committee is broken into 4 subgroups. The teams working in these groups meet regularly in order to inventory digital tools, processes and materials which support student-centered learning experiences, targeted instruction, student reflection and ownership, and data-driven decisions for teachers and students. Survey questions about the learning experience this school year and expectations moving forward are part of the work of the Reentry Planning Committee, as well as planning for communication and professional development. The goal of this group is to ensure that the administrators and teachers are prepared for whatever reentry looks like in September. Next, the committee recommends submission of the entitlement grants of $485,464 for the Elementary and Secondary Education Act ESEA grant from the state of New Jersey for the fiscal year of 2021. Title I Part A is $276,837. Title II Part A is $129,425. And Title III is $58,840. Title III Immigrant is 0, and Title IV is $20,362. These grant amounts are significantly lower than in the last school year. The Curriculum Committee also recommends approval for the purchase and use of the American Council on the Teacher of Foreign Languages Assessment of Performance Towards Proficiency in Languages assessment for world language. These tests cost will not exceed $20 per student. The committee also recommends approval of several professional development sessions, including 8 staff members to attend a virtual association for middle level education SEL deep dive online course at a cost not to exceed $39.99 each. 2 staff members to attend a virtual 1-week Teachers College Summer Institute from June 29th to July 3rd of this year. This was previously approved to attend in August, and this is a cost not to exceed $850 per person, no travels included. The Curriculum Committee also recommends approval of 225 licenses of the Better World Education Program, a social and emotional global learning resource from July 1st of this year through June 30th of next year at a cost not to exceed $11,340. Next, as Tony had mentioned, Dr. Adderhold also shared his 2019-2020 Superintendent Merit Goals with the committee, and the committee recommends submission of the goals with the appropriate documentation to the Executive County Superintendent for review and approval. We also had additional discussions on equity, curriculum, and belief work within content areas and across the district. In light of recent current events, the equity, curriculum, and belief work that has been ongoing in the district has been amplified and accelerated. As a public school district in New Jersey, the district follows the state's social studies curriculum standard. The district continues to work on adding and enhancing diverse, meaningful, and accurate perspectives to all subject areas as we move ahead. Examples of materials from various sources include teaching tolerance, trauma-informed instruction, and SEL were shared with the Curriculum Committee. These materials and resources were shared with staff in order to support conversations with students across the district. This work will be ongoing and targeted via committee work, professional development, curriculum revisions, and the vetting of materials, both digital and non-digital, to support students and staff and the community. The committee will next meet on Tuesday, July 21st.
Are there any questions for the curriculum committee? All right, I'm going to turn it over for the finance committee report, and that will go to Louisa Ho.
Okay, the Finance Committee met on June 16th. We reviewed the agenda items. The committee reviewed the monthly financial reports. The board secretary's report showed that there are enough funds to complete the fiscal year. Balances have remained constant up to the end of April. There is a motion on the agenda to move $2,081,725 into capital reserve from the general fund, as it is anticipated that balances will be available June 30th. We realize that there is a serious concern over district finances for the 2020-21 school year, but the balances at June 30th have to be strategically handled as remaining funds are used in building the 2021-22 school year budget. The committee supports the finance agenda items, which include raising the bid threshold by $4,000 to $44,000 for qualified purchasing agents. This matches recent action by the Department of Community Affairs to raise the bid threshold to $44,000. The district is applying for a safety grant of $19,474.65 from the New Jersey Schools Insurance Group. The funds will be used to replace the existing AEDs that are coming to the end of their useful life. In July, we will be selling solar renewable energy credits from the existing rooftop solar energy system. There is a motion to renew New Roads construction managers for the 2021 school year for the referendum projects, as well as other needed projects at no increase. There are motions on the agenda to renew bus routes for the 2021 school year. The committee also discussed that we need new salt storage buildings at Village and High School North. There's a walk-in agenda item to award the bid to Arista Builders and Designers for $308,000. Also on the agenda is a list of all vendors with whom the district entered into agreements over the past 12 months. This list is on the board agenda to address a state administrative requirement. Construction updates for Community Middle School. The district bid this project twice and rejected all bids because of the high cost. The district entered into negotiations with bidders intending to value engineer aspects of this project. The district selected Bennett Construction. Palamas Construction protested this. The judge heard oral discussions regarding the bid protest. The judge did not award Palamas Construction anything. The district may proceed with Bennett Construction for the CMS project. Also, there is a memorial tree at CMS that needs to be relocated. The district is discussing the future of the tree with the donating family. Referendum projects. Construction at Grover Middle School is progressing nicely. Masonry walls are going up, floors poured, and work to tie to the addition to the existing building is moving along. Bricks should be on site within 2 weeks with that work to start upon arrival. Coordination of tying in the phone system and fire and emergency messaging system is starting along with the choosing of the colors of internal services. Security vestibule work has started at Dutch Neck along with bathroom renovations. Bathroom renovation is well underway at Wyckoff as well. Security vestibule work will be starting at Millstone River and Village shortly. HVAC is well underway at High School North and is beginning at Millstone River as well. Phase 1 of the High School South project will begin next week. Fire alarm system work is progressing with work being done at Millstone River. Under capital projects, the summer roof work is almost complete at Grover Middle School and will be starting at High School North shortly. Work on the new self-contained HVAC units in the old section of Hawk will also begin shortly. For the energy savings improvement plan, the new HVAC system at South is well underway and progressing nicely. HVAC at Dutch Neck is moving right along as well. The envelope work at the various schools has begun and is progressing. This is exterior insulation work, such as caulking and filling of holes, adding insulation, etc. Solar panel installation will start at Millstone River in a few weeks, weather permitting by the beginning of July. The water conservation measures have begun at Town Center and will progress around the district. The 2019-20 audit is being discussed with the audit firm. They have requested that we photocopy and forward all required documents. We have asked instead if they would come on site and work in the vacant downstairs meeting room. The workload involved in copying the requested documentation would be onerous and not be an efficient use of staff time. Cafeteria. We are still serving students, approximately 350 every other Monday. It is our plan to serve into the summer, even though the National School Lunch Program ends June 30th for districts of our demographics. We hosted a meeting with the various food pantries in our community to discuss how to serve members of our community. The committee also set committee meeting dates for the second half of the year. The 2019-20 merit goals for the Assistant Superintendent of Finance have been met. The district again successfully received the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from ASBO International, as well as the Meritorious Budget Award for Excellence in Budgeting. For board goals, The recommendation is to carry forward goals from this year due to the challenges of COVID-19. The committee also discussed adding a fourth goal for the purpose of equity work. COVID-19 update. The district continues to feed children and families during this time. The district administration is embarking on a district-wide reentry plan for September as directed by the state. However, at this time, there is no guidance from the Department of Education. You've already heard about the committees and working on the reentry plan, so I won't go over that again. Hourly rates. The minimum wage goes to $12 per hour in January 2021, so our rates will have to be board approved to match that increase. Other business, the community education program is an enterprise account and is self-sufficient. The program is not generating any revenue at this time. However, we are paying salaries out of this account. This account also funds a percentage of the district's maintenance budget. There is no summer program to generate funds. The committee will next meet on July 21st.
Are there any questions for the Finance Committee? Okay, that brings us to the voting portion of our agenda. We'll begin with administration items 1 through 5. Can I please get a motion? Tony and Martin. Are there any questions on the administration items? Thank you, Chris.
Hey, we'll start with Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Ho,
Yes.
Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Mr. Chang,
Yes.
Ms. Sovich. Sorry.
We can't hear you, Robin.
Take care. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Yep, Ms. Sovich, Ms. Juliana, Ms.
Yes.
Juliana, and Ms. Case.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I please get a motion on curriculum items 1 to 5? Dana and Graylin, are there any questions on the curriculum items? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Ho,
Yes.
Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Sovich. Thumbs up. Thumbs up for the sake of a recording.
Thumbs up.
Mr. Chang,
Yes.
Mr. Flores,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
Ms. Case.
Yes. Could I please get a motion on finance items 1 to 28 plus the one addendum? Louisa and Isaac, are there any questions on the finance items? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
And next is Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Sovich.
That's a yes.
Thumbs up. Yes, that's a yes. Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Ho,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
and Ms. Case.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just going to point out next on the agenda, as Louisa mentioned in her Finance Committee report, in order to be compliant with state code, the list of our vendors for the 2019-2020 school year was posted on the board workspace. And then I guess will be a part of the minutes of the meeting. Right? Did anybody have any questions on that? Okay, so can I now get a motion, please, on personnel items 1 and 2, and 1 had a replacement update. And then we also had addendums 1, 2, 3, and 4. Am I missing anything on that, Charity? We're good? Okay, so personnel items 1 replacement and 2 plus the 4 addendum. Can I please get a motion on that? Rachel and Tony. Any questions? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, Mr. Flores,
Yes.
Mr. Chang,
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Ms. Ho,
Yes.
Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Sovich.
Thumbs up. Yes.
Thumbs up. Okay. Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
Ms. Case.
Yes.
Okay.
Could I please get a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on June 9th. Isaac and Graylin. All those in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed or abstention? Are there any liaison reports?
So, Ms. Case, if I may
Yes.
jump in. Just checking, I may have missed it, and I apologize. The addendum for the Finance Committee, was that mentioned as part of the motion?
It was.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Thank you.
double checking. Yep.
Thank you for checking. Are there any liaison reports?
I have one.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Graylin.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The WWP Education Foundation Board met on June 10th. I'm pleased to report they received close to $18,000 in donations, even with the Innovation Fair being canceled. The majority of donations came from the STAR campaign, which raised almost $10,000. These donations are primarily from the very generous and supportive district families who wish to recognize and appreciate the teachers and staff during these challenging times. A total of 503 certificates were sent, including 193 STAR certificates sent on behalf of High School North's PTSA. The board gave a shout out to Mayor Marathe, Kia Bergman, and me. Ashima, the board president, wanted to make sure I included myself, for promoting the STAR campaign and all of their events via PTA, district newsletters, and other avenues. For the 2019-2020 year, $3,742 in Excellence in Education funds were granted. A couple of examples of how the funds were used include the purchase of professional video equipment and digital microscopes for the 6th grade teachers. Another $10,000 was granted for a special project, setting up STEAM maker stations in all 10 schools. During Senior Awards Night, 4 seniors in the youth committee were each awarded $200 scholarships, 3 from South and 1 from North. Speaking of the youth committee, they have shown peer-to-peer leadership by starting a mentorship program this summer to benefit kids in kindergarten through 8th grade. So far, they have 27 kids and 31 tutors signed up. Members of the youth committee also set up a food drive, delivering from Brothers Pizza to Princeton Medical Center, West Windsor Police and Fire Departments, and Plainsboro Police and Fire Departments on different days of the week. So I would like to thank the WWP Education Foundation and their youth committee for their outstanding efforts to give back, not just to our schools, but to the broader community. Thank you.
Thank you, Graylin. Is there any new business? That brings us to our second opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who have submitted written comments on the form that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this second opportunity for public comment. All submissions containing all required fields completed will be viewed during the meeting and included as public comment in the official minutes. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and will be read by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond those 3 minutes, the full comment will be submitted and available as part of the meeting's public record. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Toscano to read the comments.
Okay, Madam President, the first comments from Joy Horton, 807 Monty Court, Ewing. Comment is, I would like to thank both the communities of Plainsboro and West Windsor for their support and for coming out to both our student-led Black Lives Matters rallies held in Plainsboro on June 7th and in West Windsor on June 13th. I want to commend and recognize the efforts of High School North alumni Amar Horton and current High School South Rising Junior Denia Smith for their hard work and efforts in organizing the students for both rallies and for their fiery speeches. Over 1,000 citizens came out with their banners and flyers in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. People took the time on a Sunday or a Saturday to march with us and to listen to speeches from the students. The students are the future of our country. I also want to recognize the I want to commend and recognize the efforts of High School North alum. Oh, I apologize. Oh, there we go. The screen moved. I want to recognize the assistance and support of both Mayors Peter Cantu and Deputy Mayor Neil Luz and Senator Linda Greenstein and WW Mayor Hamat Marthe, as well as our police chiefs, Robert Cavallo and Fred Taverner, and their teams for ensuring the protesters' First Amendment rights to protest. We were overwhelmed with the support from the community, and you showed us that we matter. We have a long ways to go, but we can continue to work together as a community and as a nation. We can make a difference in the lives of those who are disenfranchised. Racism has no place in this district, in our towns, or in our nation.
Mr. Giscano, that's the only comment.
Madam President, that's all we have.
Thank you. Thank you for reading those comments, and thank you, Joy Horton, for your 2 comments tonight. The board needs to go into executive session again tonight, and I'm going to read the required resolution. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act authorizes boards of education to meet in executive session under certain circumstances, and whereas the Open Public Meetings Act requires the board to adopt a resolution at a public meeting to go into private session. Now therefore be it resolved by the West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District Board of Education that it is necessary to meet in executive session to discuss certain items involving the superintendent evaluation. Be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board, which need not remain confidential, will be made public as soon as feasible. The minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Be it further resolved that the board will not return to open session to conduct business at the conclusion of the executive session. So can I please get a motion to go into closed executive session? Robin and Dana. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. We'll reconvene under the other Zoom link. I want to thank everybody for coming out, and we'll see you in about a month.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.